Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Investing Leech. In this episode, I'll be sharing about how do I look at the current market direction and how do I get this information to decide what form of action I would like to take for the upcoming few months of uh, direction for the stocks. Okay, so currently now let's look at the stocks at macro level. As you know, as of now, we are currently affected based on huge market sentinel from the major market, such as the US. So one current major news that is upcoming is Singapore. We will be having the election in 1 week's time. Dr. Well has actually written a very interesting article about how exactly stock market performed after each generation since the 1988. So I'll be leaving all these links down at the description section below to take a look at what Dr. Wealth have actually written. For my own conclusion on the perspective is that actually what exactly happens with the current outcome of the election does not really matter, because I think we are heavily affected by macro events that happen during our election. So I think it's pretty similar this time as well, as we are affected by COVID as we have our election. As you can see through the years, okay, that we are actually hit by Asia financial crisis in '08 or the currency crisis. All this has actually overshadow whatever outcomes we have during our election. So do take a look at what Dr. Well has shared. I think it's a very interesting perspective of how he compared the numbers and to form his own conclusion. Okay, in the next thing that I will share is on stock per basis. You have the financial reports from each stocks as well, and investing note has actually compiled one comprehensive calendar that I prefer to take a look at when I decide exactly on what stocks I would like to look at. So some common names that you might find would be Papertree Logistics. Yeah, so if I were to be a shareholder investor, I'll be looking at the estimates and what is the exact outcome of the financial report before I decide if I should be adding more or taking an exit or reducing on my exposure to the stock. Other than events that is happening in Singapore, as you know, we are heavily now affected by major markets like the US. So on Market Watch itself, there's actually economic calendar for the US as well. So some of the interesting things I'll be looking out for will be on things like conference by the Fed chairman Jerome Powell or the Treasury Secretary Stephen, yeah, or things like non-pay farm rolls or unemployment report. As you can see in the last few weeks, all these reports actually got to do and make a major play in terms of how the US market moves. So other than this, if you were to look ahead of major events that is happening in the US, you have the stimulus package that is been talking about ever since the first one in March, with the unlimited quantitative easing as one of the highlights. So the second one is actually in the talks and might be happening between the period of August to September. So it's important to pay attention to this news that would be happening and what exactly entails with this similar package, as all this will have a great play to what the upcoming economy markets might turn out to be in the upcoming months as well. And last but not least will be election in November to December period for the US. There's an interesting article written by Yahoo Finance on talking about why President Trump losing the election would really worry the investors as well. As you can see in 2015, when Hillary was actually fighting against Trump to run for presidency, and everyone was speculating that, hey, look, if Trump were to take over as president, it will lead to stocks tanking, going to an all-time low. But we are actually running even on a higher highs, and so it's important to know exactly how this news will play out with the upcoming months, on the confidence polls, on deciding who will be leading the race, whether is it Joe Biden for the Democrats or Trump running for a second term, and what form of effects and action they might have that will lead to an impact on the current stock market. Yeah, and last but not least, we are in COVID. um, so there has been a lot of news, positive news coming out from the major pharma companies in the US, such as Pfizer or Moderna, coming out with positive results on the vaccine trials for COVID-19. In fact, most of them are actually running on the end of the second phase of their trials, which leads them to the last final phase on the third one before the FDA or on the China side were to give approval for vaccine trials to come through. So over the last few months, positive news coming out from this medical company do actually have a huge play towards the US market in terms affecting the Singapore markets as well. Um, for me myself, I would say because the market is so volatile right now and speculative, I would not take up a 100% position being vested in the market, because I would like to have a form of a safety fund, an emergency fund, in a sense that when there is a major correction which I did not predict or actually come true, it actually would help me to provide me with the funds to help me to average down on stocks that I would like to take up a bigger position and on a lower price form. Yeah, so this will in turn help me to be on an advantage on riding out and surviving this whole COVID crisis within these few months or even years to come. Yeah, so this is on my insight how I were to see the upcoming stock markets will move, and I will be sharing these links down below in the description sector. So I will hope this will help you to analyze the market and decide what exactly is good for you to have a insight on what exactly you should do in the upcoming months. Thank you, and I will see you next week.